Good morning, everyone. We have got about 35 people attending as of now out of more than 100 which have registered. Give us a couple of minutes more. We'll wait for another 2 minutes, after which we'll start off with the webinar. Meanwhile, as I had discussed, if anybody wants to get a cup of coffee or you would want to check out easysolar.com/elite, which is an automatic BOM calculator. You just need to quickly register, send your mobile phone an OTP, confirm the OTP, and you're good to go. We generate BOM and the cost of a solar power plant in any pin code across the country in real time. I'll have a small demo of this at the end of the webinar as well. But till then, sit tight. I'll join you in another 2 minutes again. Hi again. So we are good to go with the webinar. Very good morning. As all of you already know, the topic of today's webinar is the process for getting MNRE exemptions, which is Ministry of New and Renewable Energy exemptions on excise as well as customs. So excise duty is applicable to anything and everything which is manufactured within India. Customs duty is applicable to anything and everything which is imported within India. Right, so we'll be talking about the process that MNRE has very recently revised, waiving off the requirement of the state nodal agency's approval. Let me get started. First things first, I'm your host for today. My name is Puneet Singh Jaggi. I'm the director of Easy Solar, and before Easy Solar, I have been a lead consultant to about 2 gigawatt of solar power plants set up across the country. We have processed MNRE applications worth at least 500 megawatts, if not more, at different points of time across the last 3-4 years. So fair to say that I've got a decent idea on how the process works. My email ID and phone number are given on the screen. All of you are most welcome to reach out to me anytime that you would want to get a further clarity or any other thing that you would want to know about Easy Solar or our work. In case I do not pick up, I request you to please just drop in a message and I'll be sure to reach out back to you. In order to make the webinar a little more conversational, you would have downloaded a GoToWebinar control panel which would be appearing on the right side of your screen. If you look at it closely, there would be a questions tab on the screen as well. So in case there are any questions that you might have during the webinar or after, I request you to please type it out over there. We will get to all the questions at the end of the webinar. The webinar is expected to last about half an hour. However, the question and answer session might continue for a much longer time. Right. Now, let me first of all get started with all the key MNRE notifications which are there. As you see on the screen, which is also available on the MNRE website, there's a host of notifications that have been given by MNRE, right from instituting the exemptions, I think back in 2010-11, and now updating the last and final process, right? So a copy of these can be availed under the JNNSM section on the MNRE website. Coming to rooftops in particular, for rooftop solar power plants, the policy was slightly revised to say that we are going to get exemptions only for projects which are above 100 kilowatt, and these are going to be only and only excise exemptions that we end up getting, and not customs as well. However, the reality might be slightly different. We do get customs exemptions for the plants. Also, it mentions that it is connected only for grid-connected solar power plants, but it is very well working fine for the off-grid power plants also. The theoretical capacity, however, as I said, has to be a minimum of 100 kilowatts. Now, you may want to be going ahead with, I mean, exemptions probably will lead to a betterment into a reduction of cost to the extent of almost 4%, 5%. The reason for that is that on modules, there are no exemptions which are required separately. Even if you do not take an exemption, the modules are still exempt from paying any customs duty when they are imported, or any excise duty when they are manufactured in India. On the rest of the equipments, which forms almost 50% of the equipment cost, the inverters are mostly imported and rest everything is procured locally. When the inverters are imported, there is a duty of almost 29.1% which is applicable to them. This becomes 5.15% in case you do have the exemptions. In case of excise, for everything except the module, we have a standard excise of 12.5% in India. All in all, on about 50% of your cost, there's about a 12 to 15% levelized duty which is applicable, which means that if a project was to cost 60 rupees, out of which 30 rupees was modules, I'm saying 60 rupees a watt peak, which means about 60 lakhs for a 100 kilowatt project, out of which 30 lakhs was modules and 30 lakhs was the balance of equipment, you could expect to pay almost 3 to 4 lakh rupees as duties, or alternatively get the cost down by 3 to 4 lakh rupees, which is almost 5% of the overall project cost. There is also something else that we need to understand, that there are certain items which are ineligible, which means that even if they are used in solar power plants, you cannot claim excise duties on them, which includes civil work, earthing material, lighting arresters, security, cameras, CCTVs, fencing, gates, and such other miscellaneous items. The reason why these items have been excluded is because these items are very easily usable across different works, and hence have been found to be diverted from solar power projects once the exemption has been received. So on these items, even though you might be using them in your solar power plant, you still won't be able to get an exemption on them. Now, coming to the process, fortunately now the process of claiming the exemptions has become a two-step process from a three-step process that used to be earlier. The first step is that you need to get an online registration done, and in the online registration, you also this time needs to submit all the documents upfront, or at least have all the documents ready upfront. Once you complete the online registration, the portal is going to open, and after that, you can take printouts of. First of all, MNRE is going to approve the BOM. After that, once MNRE has approved the BOM, you can take printouts of the certificates, get them certified by the CEO of your project, and submit it to MNRE. After which it gives you the signed certificates, stamped certificates back. The various parts of this process I'll just explain to you, but this is just a summary. So how does it all start? MNRE has a portal called, the number of which is given on the screen. So 164.100.194.45/CCM. Anybody can go to this portal and see a screen like the one that you see right now. For any new project that you want to set up, you are going to require to have register for that project separately. Once you click on registration, this is the kind of screen that you see, wherein you need to say that what kind of projects do you have? Is it a grid connected? Is it a mini grid? Is it an off-grid project? Under which policy are you setting up the project? And after that, a list of other details which are required. You should note over here that the name of the CEO of the solar project is required to be filled. Be careful not to give the name of the EPC contractor's CEO. It is important that each excise certificate or each custom certificate be signed by the CEO of the owning company of the plant and not of the EPC contractor. So whenever you're giving all these details, remember this, that the excise and customs exemptions are not given to the EPC company, they are issued to the owner of the project. And hence every detail that you fill has to be coming from the owner of the project. On the next couple of slides, you'll see a list of information which is required. All of that information is supposed to be from the owner of the project, not the EPC contractor. Moving on, once you have given your information for the project, you have given your email ID, you have created your user ID, password, etc. You click the submit button. Please note that once you click the submit button, the username and password is not yet generated. What you do get, however, is an email like the one that you see on the screen right now. This email carries a link which you have to click to activate your account. Once you hit this link, you'll get another checklist like the one now that you see on your screen. This is a checklist of almost 17 items. This is one of the largest changes that has happened more recently when you want to claim excise and customs exemptions. The change is that earlier on, we used to submit the BOM first, and after that, within the file that we submit to the state nodal agency as well as the MNRE, we used to include all the proofs of all the documents that they want. Now what has happened is they have asked for these proofs upfront. If you carefully look at the screen, there's a checklist of the documents that is required. In the status, you can either mention yes, no, or not applicable. In case it is not applicable, that is fine, but later on you might be able to ask for an explanation of that. But in case it is applicable and you give a no, you won't be able to generate the excise and customs exemption certificates. Not only that, you also have to mention that within your file, from which page number to which page number is that particular document. For example, the first thing is details of land area with proof of possession of land enclosed. So you put in the land ownership documents in case of a megawatt scale project, or in case of a rooftop project, you give the proof of possession of the rooftop. That can be in terms of lease agreement, that can be in terms of an ownership agreement, that can also be in terms of an agreement given by a government building to a private operator by an allocation through SECI or any such similar agency, right? Either way, you need to give this, and if this is 4 pages, then you'll mention that from page 1 to page 4, you have attached these documents. The next thing is going to be details of plants of megawatt size working anywhere for more than 1 year on the same technology and for more than 2 years on solar PV technology provided along with its performance. Typically, you would attach some examples of the projects which have been going on with the equipment that you have already used in your project, something which is very common with the equipment suppliers. Again, you need to mention, say this is 5 pages, so you'll mention that from page number 5 to page number 10 or to page number 9, you have got these certificates. The next thing is whether proof of tied up with the state transmission utility for evacuation of power for the proposed plant to grid provided. In case of a rooftop solar power plant, you won't require this, so you'll mention not applicable. In case for a megawatt scale solar power plant, you have to enclose the permission of evacuation before you can even submit the BOM. Say that is 2 pages, so you mention that from page number 10 to page number 11, you have got this particular document, right? Similarly, copy of the power purchase agreement with a chartered accountant certificate or the estimated project cost is included. Please note over here that the chartered accountant certificate has to carry the exact same value as is in the loan document of the project. This is important because at a later stage in the entire process, you are also asked if you have taken any loan, and you need to include the loan documents. If the cost in the loan document and the cost in the chartered accountant certificate for the project cost is different, your application is not going to be approved. Moving on, whether the BOM is duly signed by the chief executive officer of the project or an authorized signatory of the project company. Ideally prefer for the chief executive officer to sign it, otherwise have the authorized signatory, but then the authorized signatory has to give the affidavit as well. And there has to be a board resolution which supports the authorized signatory to sign this particular certificate. Then whether the BOM is duly certified by the impaneled chartered engineer and its stamp, member number and date is also given. Once you go ahead, you are going to be asked to generate the BOM of the entire project, which means that you'll have to mention that which are all the individual items that are going to be that you're going to be claiming under excise and customs exemption. Once you complete this form, there's going to be a tabular bill of materials which comes out on the MNRE website that you can print, and then you have to take a sign of chartered engineer on this. What is a little counterintuitive is that we are supposed to give the page number over here itself, whereas actually we have not generated the BOM, so we do not know how many pages will it take once it is generated on the MNRE website. So this is a glitch that is there in the current process. However, on discussions of MNRE, the solution that we end up giving is that typically, the entire BOM, no matter how exhaustive you make it, is not going to have more than 6 pages or 7 pages. So we mentioned those page numbering of 6 or 7 pages over here. And after that, in case a BOM comes out to be 3 pages instead of 7, we attach a couple of blank pages over there as not used. Right, so this is a local jugaad, so to say, which is happening nowadays till such time that they fix this glitch. Moving on, whether the BOM is duly recommended and signed by the state government department, designated agency and state nodal agency with office seal. This is another thing which has changed this time around, that we do not require to give this certificate anymore. We do not need to get a state nodal agency to approve the BOM before we can submit it to be MNRE. So you can put not applicable over here and move on. Whether the detailed project report is enclosed, whether the copy of EPC contract or agreement is provided, whether electrical engineering single line diagram or DC solar block, power block, evacuation block, route survey of the transmission line, detailed drawings with calculation sheets of required cables, calculation sheets of equivalent weight of module mounting structures in kgs or metric tons, poles, inverters, transformers, material chart, etc. are enclosed. This is going to be extremely interesting for all of you to note. Earlier, whenever there was a doubt with MNRE used to ask the project developer to clarify the doubt. Now you need to be able to give these things upfront. So you need to enclose the single line diagram of the project. You need to include the layout of the project. You need to include the cable schedule of your project along with detailed justification. You need to include the BOM of structural material with the weight of each and every component so that you can arrive at a tonnage of how much structures are you going to use. And not only that, you're also supposed to submit the layout, an exhaustive layout showing each and everything that you're claiming the exemptions for in a soft copy as well as in a hard copy. What that means is that when you, in hard copy, it's all, I mean, you cannot submit it in an A4 sheet. That's not required. That you cannot get away with that. You need to submit into a large A0 sheet, which clearly shows each and every equipment's location, so that the MNRE can have a look at it and cross-verify if it has to. Not only that, in the soft copy that you submit, you need to submit it in an AutoCAD. When you submit it in the AutoCAD, you need to have different layers for different equipment that you're claiming the excise exemption for, right? So this is probably the toughest part, that the MNRE has made the process easier by taking out the role of the state nodal agency, but it has also made it harder for you to claim, because now for everything that you claim, you need to have detailed justification before you can submit the application itself. So as was written in point number 11, all drawings must be large size. Also, route survey of transmission line should be certified by the chief electrical inspector of the concerned area. If you do not do that, the transmission line that you are going to use for the megawatt scale project is not going to get an approval for MNRE or excise. Then on point number 12, civil engineering project layout, drawing of arrays, which are control room, mechanical engineering structure, etc. Note this, that that earlier on what used to happen is that people used to make an estimated guesswork of a BOM, and if you were expecting that your project will have 50 tons of structure per megawatt, you used to end up giving 60 tons because you would want to err on the positive side, so that tomorrow if there is any kind of increase, even on fine tuning of this BOM, you would still be able to manage it in less than what has been submitted. This can also be used against the purpose of, against the spirit of the MNRE exemption process. What I mean by that is that you might really require 50, but you might take exemption for 60, and you use the balance 10 in some other purpose except for the solar plant. So that's why MNRE has become very particular about it and asks for every justification upfront. As is written in the checklist, a Google map image is not a civil layout drawing, and hence it cannot be entertained. Point number 13, whether SLD or approved drawings for injection point and metering have been provided. Point number 14, whether copy of SLSC approval or in principle approval of the concerned authority of the state is provided. This is applicable in case the plant is installed under REC mechanism. Now, most of you probably are not installing plants in the REC mechanism, so you don't need to worry about it. Put not applicable over here. Whether the SPD has given an undertaking required under finance notifications, and so basically over here what is happening is that in case you are using a transmission line in a megawatt scale project, then there needs to be an undertaking that you need to submit that the transmission line under a particular notification of the government has an exemption, and that is going to be used only for the purposes of solar power, and it's going to be a one-time exemption when the plant is built, and after that it would no longer be valid. So that is required for a megawatt scale plant. 2 affidavits with self-certification only, one each for excise duty exemption and customs duty exemption, submitted in the prescribed formats. This is not required on the stamp paper. However, you need to be very careful that you put it in the exact format of the government. In case you do not do that, it won't be accepted, and again the application is not going to go through. The layout of the project in PDF format, indicating the details of the component and their quantity consumption in a table as indicated in the BOM. As I said, the layout in soft copy and hard copy need to be submitted. While in the hard copy, you're going to submit it in the file itself. In the soft copy, you are going to mail it across to the same email ID from which you had received the activation email. Once, hopefully, you have done this entire process, which is a very exhaustive process. It might take you 10 days, 15 days, some people even 60 days to get all of these approvals and drawings in place. If your engineering is midway, you won't be able to get this done. You need to go through the entire process and get this done. But however, once you have submitted all of these things, your account gets activated. Then you can use the user ID and password that you had generated in the beginning itself, and you can use that to log in. Once you log in, you'll get a screen like this. You'll click on the application button on the top menu. Oh, I'm so sorry. So you first have to submit the bill of material. So first you click on the submit bill of material. Once you click on submit bill of material, this is the kind of screen that you end up seeing. That is select group, item name, quantity, specifications, and whether you want to claim a customs duty exemption or an excise duty exemption. What is important over here is that you need to be careful of which group and what item name to give. For example, there are 4 parts. There is solar block, power evacuation, and measuring instruments. So solar block means that probably an inverter would fall under the solar block. The power block means that you would have the transformers under the power block. The power evacuation means the transmission line infrastructure. The measuring instruments means the paranometer, the meter, and other things, right? The second thing is the item name. You need to be very careful of mentioning the exact same item name as you are going to include in the purchase order of the equipment. If there's any deviation, that leads to a problem, asking for more justifications at a later stage. So be careful that the item name is the same name that you're given to that particular object in your purchase order as well. Coming to the quantity, again, this is a little complicated to the extent that you have to ensure that the units of the items in your purchase order have to match necessarily the units and quantity which is allowed under these 6 or these 5 names. What I mean by that is that in case you are putting an application for module mounting structures, you cannot have a cost per watt peak in your PO. You cannot have number of structures in your PO. You need to necessarily have it in terms of kgs or metric tons, right? So any other unit except for these 5 units as given in the quantity is not acceptable by MNRE. So once you do this, you make an entire BOM for each and every equipment that you want to claim the excise and customs duty exemption for. After that, you take, once this thing is submitted, you take printouts of this BOM. The printout of this BOM is taken in 3 copies. That is you take that printout of the bill of material along with all the other documents that you had included in the checklist to the chartered engineer. First, you get it signed by your CEO. After that, you take it to your chartered engineer. The chartered engineer, in turn, would approve the BOM. Once the chartered engineer approves the BOM, then along with the other 17 items, you submit the details to MNRE in 3 copies. Once you have submitted the BOM in 3 copies, the MNRE typically has a working time of 7 days in which either it will ask for a justification or it is going to give you an approval, and the portal is going to open for you to print exemption certificates. The exemption certificates are then going to require a couple of other information that we are going to cover in the following slide. So assuming that you get a go-ahead, that means that in the backend, the MNRE opens the BOM for you to apply for the CCDC and EDEC exemptions, which is customs and excise exemptions. After that, once you log in, you click on the application tab. On the application tab, you click on whichever equipment you want to first take a printout of the certificate for. Now, this is the screen that opens up in case you have clicked on the excise duty exemption. So you mention over here what is the item number, what is the quantity, what is the basic rate, what is the applicable excise duty. You also mentioned the entire range or the entire chain of purchase orders. Just as an example, there's a project developer A who gives a turnkey EPC contract to an EPC company B, who in turn gives a contract to an inverter supplier C, right? So you'll mention over there that PVR Solar Energy, for example, the name that is given on the screen over here, has given the contract to an EPC contractor whose name is going to be given, and the contractor has given this PO number dated. A contractor has further given that PO to the equipment supplier. So the PO number, date, the date and the PO number of the original EPC contract, as well as every subsequent PO issued by the middle agency, whether that be EPC contractor or the further equipment supplier down below, has to be mentioned, right? Because excise is going to be claimed ultimately by the final manufacturer of the equipment, which means that you need to have the entire chain of POs, right from the project developer to EPC to equipment supplier A, who might be in turn sourcing it from equipment supplier B, and so on. Anyhow, moving ahead, below you also need to mention the excise number of the equipment supplier. You need to mention his excise range, you need to mention his division, and you need to mention his commissioner rate, right? So you need to give all of these details upfront in order to get an excise exemption certificate. Once you do click the submit button, you will get an excise certificate that you can print and then get it certified by the project CEO. Please note that the excise certificate or the custom certificate flow generated and printed does not need to be signed by the chartered engineer anymore. Only the BOM needs to be signed by the chartered engineer. Also, please note that whenever you are giving the excise or customs exemption certificate to the MNRE to get this seal and stamp on it, you need to make sure that you are also attaching all the supporting POs which you had mentioned in the certificate. They are only going to check it vis-a-vis the POs and then issue the certificate. Moving on, what you see on the screen now is the CCDC application. We already covered excise. Now this is customs application that we are seeing. So within customs also, it's the same process. You need to give the entire chain of POs. You also need to give CIF value per unit, the currency that you're talking about, and the applicable exchange rate. On the second page, you also need to give the port wherein your equipment is going to be delivered. And if that was not enough, you also need to mention the commissioner of customs, right? Once you have generated this, 2 copies of the exemption certificate and the relevant purchase order signed by the project CEO, after which they are again submitted to MNRE. The certificates are signed and stamped by the director at MNRE. One certificate is handed over to the owner, the other certificate is taken back by the MNRE as a proof of the receiving. Right? So this is the entire process by which you can get a customs and excise certificate. As I had mentioned in my last webinar on these certificates, at Easy Solar, you can purchase any equipment from Easy Solar and you could expect a free of cost guidance on the entire process of getting the exemption certificate. At a small fees, we are even willing to carry out the entire process on your behalf. Right? So this is something that we do. There is also a process of reconciliation of all of these certificates at the end of your project, or within 2 months of you claiming that claiming the certificate, or of you generating the certificate and getting it signed by MNRE. You need to also give a proof of the consumption, which means that you need to give a tax invoice from the equipment supplier. Right, as a proof that you have gone through the entire process. You also need to have reconciliation submitted to the state nodal agency. So although the role of state nodal agency has been taken out at the time of issuance of certificates, but the role is still very much there at the time of reconciliation, which means that you give this notice to the state nodal agency, whose officer is going to come and check it check your site whether the equipment has actually been consumed. Now, while we are on the topic of how Easy Solar can help you possibly get these certificates, I'll also like to take this moment to quickly introduce you to Easy Solar's latest tool, or BOM calculator, which also takes into consideration duly the customs and excise exemptions that you can get for projects, right? So this is a typical Easy Solar website, right from design to ordering equipment to connect, everything you can do, right? So when you purchase anything from Solar Cart, this is what it looks like, right? All the solar panels, inverters, structures, peripherals, solar gadgets, everything can be purchased from a website. Or you could get the negotiated cost by giving us a call on this number. Either way, so in case you want any of this, you can just buy it from the website. What I'm interested to show you is the BOM calculator. This is what the BOM calculator looks like. So you can mention your project capacity. Say my project capacity is 100 kilowatt. Then you can mention the pin code. Say my pin code was in Ahmedabad itself, or let me take it from my hometown, which is Panchkula. So 134.109, or sorry, 134.107, right? And the kind of rooftop that you want the structure for. So say I want it for the shed mounted structures, then I press proceed. I'm going to be asked to log in. In order to log in, you need to have quickly give your email ID. In order to sign up, you need to quickly give your email ID and your phone number. On your phone number, we'll send you an OTP, which you can use to quickly verify. And after that, you can move ahead and log in. Now, once you log in, this is what you end up getting. So, a 100 kilowatt shed mounted structure in Panchkula, assuming all the C forms and MNRE exemptions can be provided, can cost you as low as 49 lakhs, right? As you can see on the screen, you have got the negotiated cost of all the equipments. So, as a default, we show you the least cost option, but you can change the brands of equipment. So, for example, we have assumed PV Power Tech because we enjoy the best prices from PV Power Tech. But you could also go in for others. You can go for Canadian, you can go from Navitas, you can go for REC, Renew Sys, Trina, Vari, anything that you like. Let me take Boldy Green for example. The BOM calculator will take a minute, get the data from the backend. My apologies, this is taking more time than expected. I'll just restart again. So 100 kilowatt project, 134107. Right, so say I take it for Navitas. Yeah, so we get the pricing for Navitas. Note over here that although modules never require the exemption, but you also have an option of clicking which equipments you will be able to get the exemption certificate for, which equipment you won't be able to get the exemption certificate for. We have also done a 2% freight assumption over here. Same thing you can do for inverters. You can check whether you want grid connected, off grid, which make of equipment do you want. So you want grow watt, you want SMA, anything. Say I take SMA, I get the prices for SMA. And I can place orders for SMA. Similarly, structures. So aluminum profile structures, mid clamps, end clamps, fasteners, cables, AC cables, as well as DC cables. Similarly, junction boxes, earthing protection equipment. Right. Note over here that even though excise duty exemption is selected, but earthing equipment still has got an excise duty. The reason for that is that excise duty exemptions are not applicable to earthing equipment. Right? You can go for accessories. Finally, we can go for the services, the engineering, the civil and electrical work and supervision. And net cost is going to come to you for 53.92 with the equipment that we have selected. Now, let me go on the least cost model back again, wherein we had grow watt inverters and we had PV Power Tech modules. Right? So it costs us less than 50 rupees a watt peak with MNRE exemptions and C forms in order to set up a 100 kilowatt plant if you buy the equipment from Easy Solar. Now let me take for a second that if I did not have MNRE exemptions, the cost increases from 49 rupees a watt peak to 51.65 rupees a watt peak, right? Assuming that you do not have a C form that you can get, the project cost further goes down to further goes up to 52.97 lakh rupees per for your project, which means for 52.97 rupees per watt peak, right? So the BM calculator is a tool to help you quote for any project, to help you procure equipment for any project that you already have. You can also send an inquiry at any point of time, and you'll get a confirmation email. The confirmation email is going to look something like this. Right, so this is a confirmation email, and along with this, you get a detailed BOM as was included in the BOM that you just saw. So you get to understand that for each equipment, what is the type, what is the quantity, what is the dispatch location, the unit price, subtotal, MNRE price, tax price, freight price, and total. Please note that these are indicative prices, and that once you send us an inquiry, we'll get in touch with you and we'll give you the actual negotiated prices right to the last rupee, right? So that's how BOM calculator works. We hope you enjoy this. You can also download the specification sheets of equipments wherever applicable from the BOM calculator. We are also including the certifications of each and every equipment for the BOM calculator, right? So that's all, folks, when it comes to today's webinar. I'll just start taking a couple of questions now. The first question is that if it's a RESCO model, then whose name will be filed in CEO row? Interesting question. So far as we know, the exemption are always filed by the owner of the project. So in the RESCO model, the RESCO company is the owner of the project, and hence they'll be the one who apply for the exemption certificate. If there's anybody in the audience who is 100% sure of this, you could also please confirm in the questions tab, and I'll narrate the answer out. The next question is, when you said owner of the project, is this the user, example a school that is installing the PV plant, or the CEO of the company such as XYZ Private Limited, right? So in this case, it's going to be the CEO of the company itself that is going to be there, unless if the plant is going to be installed by Bharat Petroleum, you cannot expect that the CEO of the company is going to sign each and every exemption certificate. In that case, the board authorizes somebody else, or there's a letter that authorizes somebody else who becomes an authorized signatory. The estimated cost of the project will be the cost price or the selling price of the power plant. Well, this is going to be the price as is included under your contract with the EPC contractor. So I'm not sure what this means, but it's going to be the line item that you have claimed. I'm still not sure if I understand the question very well, though. Move on. I'll try to get back to this question. As per revision, checklist needs to fill first. That means file of documents with page number need to be prepared before making an MNRE online application. Yes, that is correct. We need to first make a file, have all the page numbers listed, and after that start the MNRE process. Next thing from Ms. Nithya, are these detailed drawings and route surveys required for rooftop projects, say 200 kilowatt? Yes, the detailed drawings are required even for rooftop projects, but the transmission route surveys are not going to be applicable, so you can put that as not applicable. Considering the hassle in making these files, getting these documents, and getting the approvals from MNRE, the coordination which it entails, we don't even recommend that you try to go for the exemptions unless and until you have got 200, 300, or 500 kilowatt worth of projects. Is a single document to be uploaded? Well, there is no document to be uploaded. This needs to be submitted in a hard copy file when you submit it to MNRE. So not a document to be uploaded, but a file to be submitted. You just need to mention the page number beginning and page number ending of each and every document which is included in that 17-point checklist. In case of tender of SNA, state rural agency in which name application needs to be applied, that is in the name of SNA or EPC beneficiaries, please clarify. And again, this is by Mr. Ketan Jasani again, who is, by the way, a chartered engineer in Ahmedabad. In case of I'm not sure if the question I'm reading is correct, but I'm assuming that you're saying that in case an EPC contractor has got a project from a state tender, in that case, how do we apply for these certificates? Well, typically in tenders, the excise exemptions are not claimed at all, and in case they are claimed, then the owner of the project, that is the state agency or the state company which is giving out that project, has to necessarily apply, even though he might be aided by the EPC contractor in the process. Two affidavits will be on the company letterhead in case of rescue mode. They can be on the company letterhead, they can be on plain paper also. I think, though, most likely it's on simple plain paper. Does structure fall under solar block? Yes, structure falls under the solar block. Is it required to obtain exemptions separately for each component of MMS? No, you don't need to explain. No, you don't need to do it for each component for MMS. However, you need to mention the tonnage. So the MMS structure exemptions are typically issued in tonnage. So you can have a purlin, a rafter, a column, a leg, whatever it is that you want to do. But as long as the item name and the PO name are exactly identical, what I mean is that you mentioned solar module mounting structures equivalent to these many tons. Below that, you can put in the breakup of these many purlins, these many rafters, etc. But that's for your own convenience of a purchase order. As far as the MNRE is concerned, the MNRE wants to see the exact same item name as is there in the PO, and it wants to see everything in kgs or tons. For the slide submission of BOM, is there a separate document that mentions how to fill up this information? You could, I mean, we are easily reachable. Probably we can explain you how to fill this up, but it's pretty straightforward. Can we clarify that in case of RESCO or OPEX model, EPC contractor will be the company itself? So in case of OPEX or in case of the RESCO model, I'm assuming that you refer to the EPC company because the EPC company is also the owner of the project. So let me give you an actual example. Say I have a RESCO company and I appoint a company B to construct a project for a client to whom I'm going to sell electricity, which is a company C. In this case, my company, company A, is going to be the one who applies for these exemptions and not the EPC contractor B and not the customer to whom the electricity is going to be sold, who is the party C. The next question, can multiple certificates be printed for the same item in case of orders to multiple manufacturers? Yes, multiple certificates can be printed. So you can, if you have got a total of 60 tons, you can give 30 tons first and 30 tons later. That is possible. The question is, does the chartered engineer demand a fee? Yes, obviously, there are people who need to eat food and maintain a family like everyone else. So yes, they charge a fees for the work that they do. I guess we have got a couple of other questions which might not necessarily be strictly to the scope of the webinar. Just one last question that I'll take up. When GST rolls out, do you expect the exemptions to continue? There is a separate recording on GST, a webinar that we had done on GST the last time. I request you to have a look at that. As of now, the way it is proposed, the GST might do away with most of the exemptions, but it is not necessary. It's something that the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and Ministry of Finance have to discuss between themselves and decide. Right? Thanks a lot, everybody, for attending the webinar. We got a pretty healthy audience and a good list of questions. If there's anything further that you would want me to address, I'll be available on my phone as well as on the email. Please drop me a message and do tell us if we could do anything. I think we could be delivering equipment for you at the best prices possible, which we might not be otherwise able to get simply because we are procuring a megawatt, 2 megawatts every month. If there's something that you would want us to procure on your behalf, we will be more than happy to do that. Thanks once again. Looking forward to meet you guys again on the next webinar of Easy Solar.